Hey everybody, welcome back. Well, the day that would not end and could not make a decision is back. We're definitely going to have to go through the dollar, but here we are. I feel like it's Groundhog Day, 45, 84, 25. I feel like I've been saying the same number over and over again now for about 3 weeks, but nonetheless, here we are. Here's the breakout. Here's the test, because this time we're going to do it only to get Matumboed once again. Unable to get anywhere near this. And then we're just still dealing with this control bar, as I refer to them, and trying to see what's going to happen here. 62 basis points and people are getting giddy like the bull market's back. I don't know if it's really gone anywhere. I keep waiting for this pullback and we're not really getting it, but we're also not really going anywhere. Rotations were weak to say the least. We're seeing some issues in the dollar. But if we took a look at this, again, since we reversed right here, we have not been able to go anywhere. Now, and you keep taking out these lower lows, which is also really kind of maddening because you keep waiting for it to break, right? Now, of course, you're not shorting those lower lows. You're shorting when you're up top. But nonetheless, when you look at these patterns, that is really maddening. And I think there's something there that we should start paying attention to. We'll drill in a moment, but you keep taking out those lows. And then as you're taking them out, you're trapping people, sure. But at the same time, you have this bar that happened yesterday where you just encapsulated the entire bar. I know it's not a bullish engulfing because of what's going on, but you have the bar here that controlled this entire move, 50% more than that. You come across, and now you're dealing with this, and now you've got a bullish engulfing sitting right here. I believe it's completely encapsulated, 552, and then you come over, yep, and you're at what? 5.5. I mean, 5.56 is the open. What was the low? 5.48 now, because you really want the entire body encapsulated, and you're off by a little bit. So technically it's not one, but it might be there on the SPY. Nevertheless, this is the hand that we're dealt. I'm not really crazy about the way that it's acting. I'm just being candid. I like that you're still trying to hold up here and you're not breaking it. I like that you're not breaking. I would rather flush and get it over with. I'm wondering if we're going to have issues like this because of tax season and them not wanting to sell their winners until January. That's what retail will do. Institutions really don't care. They'll just match their trades. If you look at this, it's definitely an issue, and we're not going anywhere. Now, if you take a look at NQ, we're supposed to get all excited. I'm going to mark my 100 levels there, and we're supposed to get all excited again. Down, gets up. Now look at this. Low, 15,791. And then you look at where your close was yesterday. Okay, so you do really have an encapsulation here on the bottom of this. Now overlay this, and what this is in front of us, and yes, I use this around, even though it's a 3 and 5 and 8, I use it consecutively. So I'm looking at this and going, okay, well, we're still battling this whole area. So is this something that I want to pay attention to? It kind of is. I kind of want to pay attention to it because we flipped here. We're unable to get out of that position. The red started here. The red's the 8. And this is just a 3, a 5, and an 8 SMA overlaid on a 15-minute chart, but these are daily numbers. I can show you the calculations. They're all right here. You can do it for yourself. You can screenshot that. So if we look at this, then you go, okay, well, what does that get me? That in a bowl of soup gets you a bowl of soup. It doesn't really get you a lot. So now what? Well, we talked about this head and shoulders that was forming. Then you start cutting it, and then nothing happens. And that's when it starts getting maddening. Now, for me, what starts really bothering me is when we get wider and wider. And what do I mean by that? Now, I'll show you. When you start taking out higher highs and lower lows, but you don't go anywhere. Higher highs, lower lows, and you don't go anywhere. So that's a problem, right? Right here, higher high, then you take out the higher high, and you don't go anywhere. Do you see this? And it's happening over and over again. And what I mean, what do you mean you're not going anywhere? I mean, there's no follow through. That's a problem. And so they're like, okay, well, let's try the downside. There's no follow through. All right, so then we try the upside again, and there's no follow through. And now you're not even taking out the lower low. These kinds of patterns, these are absolutely maddening for traders because you're not getting anything that you can trade off of if you're a trend trader. So what does that mean? Well, it's one of the reasons in the community I keep saying I'm a dip buyer, I'm a dip buyer. Now, that's not what I've been saying since yesterday, to be candid. I'm a little concerned because we're not seeing any new money come in. So let's look at this. Now let's put an hourly on here and let's look at these clouds and see what they're telling us. So this is what gets more fascinating to me because we've been yellow, we've been trending down, tries to flip to green, yellow, and now we're getting back to green or trying, but they're not definitive. They're not getting wider. See, the ones that work change colors and then they get definitive. So they will change colors and then they'll get definitive and they'll get wider and wider, and that gives you a trend. What happens with any indicator, and this is why it's so important to understand macro and understand fundamental analysis. Any indicator loses value usually in trendless markets. We're really in a trendless market, and we've been here since about the 14th, if you really look at it, not going anywhere. So these start losing their potency because of that. So just remember that if you're in a trendless market, moving averages, clouds, a lot of these oscillators and indicators, they lose their potency because of that. So this is what we have here. So then we start going, okay, let's take a look at the SOXX. Well, SOXX got right back down to 500, couldn't break over. So what's going to lead us out of this? Is it going to be the SOXX? Is that what's going to get us? And I'm not so sure, because here's the reversal off of that, and we couldn't move. Pop in the simplest of indicators, and am I supposed to get excited because we held the 22 today, but we closed over the 12? Maybe it's a start if I drop this here, and FYI, I am currently short the semiconductor sector. And if I look at this, this is still setting up that, we could go higher. These could cross, these could lift, but we're just not really seeing that same pattern that we once have. Take a look at this. And you can see how we just started leveling off on the 14th, 15th, and we're getting the same nonsense. And what I mean by the same nonsense, I want to be real clear about this, because this is when I get concerned. Because if I can't, you can chart it, but it doesn't matter because you're trendless. So if you're trendless, what does that mean? It means that you have to start relying on the macro analysis, which we're about to get to. See what I'm talking about here? You hit a higher high. Like here you're trending. You have a trend. You can deal with this. You can make money off of this. This, where you rally up, gap fill, comes down, makes a lower low. Clearly you're going lower, makes another lower low, gaps up, takes this out. Well, okay, well then we're not going lower. Gaps down, takes this lower low out. See where I'm going with this? This is absolutely maddening as a trader. Consistently, like look at this. This is exactly what I mean. 45-degree straight selling. See that? You could actually set your watch to it, right? There's only one group of individuals that do that. It's institutions. They're the only people that sell like, okay? Algorithms and institutions. Why? Because they'll say, I have $1 million to sell every hour or every 15 minutes, whatever it is. And they are just simply selling down the entire time. Nothing is that orderly. Look at this chart. Nothing is that orderly. And so you're seeing them systematically get out of trades. And then today you're seeing this lift. So are we seeing this with the smart money and then the dumb money? Are we seeing that in action right now? Is that institutions getting out while they're getting as good? And then we're seeing retail get back in there, because this is not orderly at all, right? This is very orderly, and we can see that. That's why I showed you that. Remember that if you see 45-degree angles like that, that is not mom and pop. Retail is an emotional creature. We do not sit there and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick at NVDA every moment for the next 6.5 hours. No, that's institutions that are trying to put billions of dollars to either add risk or take risk out. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so we have this. We have non-farm payrolls tomorrow. What other little things should we be worried about? The dollar. So the dollar's dropping today, and one of the things that I was going over yesterday in yesterday's video, and I think this was really important, and I'm going to keep this one short, and we're really going to dive into this on Saturday, so make sure that you get Saturday's video. Make sure you subscribe. I appreciate all your comments on this and making these videos better. I did get a better mic too, so if you notice a difference, just let me know, and we'll go from there. But when we started this with the dollar, our issue with the dollar started right here. And this was, you have to go back and you can go look at the July 28th video, and I walk through why Japan's so important, besides the fact that they own $1 trillion worth of our debt, but how Japan's dollar is tied to our dollar. Okay, they use the yen, obviously. And what we're seeing is, we're seeing this huge, well, it's not that huge, but we're seeing this rally from November 29th. And that rally just happens to coincide perfectly with the ES dropping. ES and Nasdaq go up today, dollar drops, okay? It's not rocket science. But we overlay this, got right to the 22, rejected, still above the 12. And I pointed out earlier here, look at this. I'm not going to get into the intervention. I will say this, they're talking about doing things that would be the equivalent of raising rates. It would affect the dollar. And if it does make the dollar stronger, then equities are going to drop. We've gone through this ad nauseum, but that's what you have to pay attention to. And I think this is really the issue. Tonight, before we get into anything deeper, we should just cover some of these earnings, because I think that it's pretty significant what's going on out there. So you're seeing DOCU all over the place. I'm going to clean off this chart, and this way you at least know what's going on for tomorrow. But if you take a look at DOCU right here, you're bouncing around a little bit. We'll put in the pre and the post. You trade it up. Once it reversed, I actually found a really nice spot to short this today, and it just happened so fast, candidly. But this is really clean. And again, you guys know how to do this. You should know how to do this if you're watching the videos. I know people in the community do this all the time. You set an anchored VWAP directly on the breakout bar, and then you can utilize that as a demarcation line. You can see how it broke right there. Retest tries to get through. I mean, it's pretty clean. And then you broke, and then you traded down. This quarter was not as great as it appears, and I will leave it at that. We still have the conference call at the time of recording this, but it looks good on paper, but it's not as good as it looks. And that's why it sold off after everyone spent some time reading it and taking a look at it. AVGO after hours, you traded straight down, and these were your earnings. And you can see that that is not a blowout. That is not a company that is crushing it. And you're at what, $40 a year, and you're trading at $1,000. So you can do the math on that. That better be one heck of a conference call tonight, guys. That's all I got to say. That better be one heck of a conference call when they have it, because if not, I think this thing's going to have some issues tomorrow. I already have a bias right now, and you can hear it, and I've talked about it. I don't know if I'm right or not, and I usually don't have a bias, but there's just so many things that are leaning, that are pointing down between the dollar and the complete lack of follow through and how they're trapping shorts, which they're just doing to gain liquidity. But I do want to continue to go through these. LULU, we ran right up, and let's just take a look at those earnings. Okay, they were decent, and this has been the big surprise of December. You look at XLY, and you see how it's going here. Look at some of these names like AEO after earnings and what they've done. They've exploded to the upside. VSCO is one that we're trading in the community, and we're doing exceptionally well with. ANF is just, it's hitting highs. Look at this. It's just straight. And again, this is what you want to find, guys. When you can find these things that are going up at 45-degree angles, it's nice. It makes life really easy when you see that. And here, let me just reset this and look at this. I mean, if someone told you that Abercrombie was going to be near all-time highs, you wouldn't believe them, but here we are. So I would look at the specialty retailers. I think there's some great names in there. But like anything else, you know, Lulu's not having the best day. And now you're seeing RH down after hours, about $25 at one point. Let's take a look at that. I think that's pretty pertinent, because this is one that people love to trade after hours. And you're not really getting any kind of bounce, and you really can't miss in this market. You can't be saying you're going to earn $1 and then all of a sudden you are losing money. That's not going to go over very well tomorrow. So that's definitely one that I would be watching if you're into shorting names. Now, SWBI, I always want to hear this conference call, because the way that it moves, you know, it can have some pretty significant moves associated with it. But I'm not so interested in that one, because it's not going to really move the market. LULU will move the market as far as moving XLY, so will RH. But the real driver tomorrow, the one you really have to pay attention to, is AVGO. And you really need to pay attention to how we act after that conference call. If you take a look at NVDA today, NVIDIA's just driving everybody, in my opinion, batty. We had a really nice short trade on today. It worked out really very well. And I'm not going to get into the whole trade right now because of time's sake, but I just want to point this out. I mean, when you start seeing these patterns, they start becoming, as I'd like to say, absolutely glaring. Up, pulls back, up. For those that know these patterns, I refer to them as devil horns. But when you start to see them, you can't miss them. You see that right there? The best ones are always the ones that make that higher high. When they make that higher high, and it's not by much, it's by pennies, just to lure you in. And what they do, over does the pullback like it's supposed to, gets over, so it gets everybody giddy. And then if you don't bite here, the next one goes right up, like by a couple pennies, and then they just reversed. And as soon as they did that, I just went short. And I did that through stock, and I did that through options, and then it just traded down. And I had a fairly decent day with it. But this was a very frustrating trade today. Very frustrating day for this. And I think that this day in general, let me just show you this, has been pretty frustrating if you take a look at this. You're just really baseless with movement. And this is from somebody that really likes the company. But this is getting really hard. Like every day you're either gapping down or you're gapping up. And they're making it very difficult out there. I know a lot of people were trading Tesla today. I have other names out there in that space that I really like, but I will get into them on Saturday. I don't think there's much to say here. We can look at this on the daily for a moment, but you should be able to see exactly what I'm trying to show you right here by looking at this. And I'll just put it in really quickly so that you can see it, but I'm sure you guys already saw that level right down here. And you can just see that lower channel. Sometimes it's a good idea to just click on these, clone them, and then just see if they fit anywhere that makes any kind of sense. And I don't really see anything of consequence there, so I would just pop it back up there, and you can see how big that channel could actually truly be, right? I mean, it does seem to fit up there pretty perfectly. So if we're looking for that and we're looking for the channel, then we can see that this does have room. I don't know that I need to be in here playing around with this right now. I don't really know what my key level is that I'm going to really be able to get in here and make anything off of. And this is kind of where the frustration's coming in. Look, so here's the 55, and we've been slicing up and down through that. Sometimes you're over the 12, sometimes you're under it, you're staying above the 22, but you just have all these wicks over and over again. And if you take this out and you look at this, there's very little that you could say that made sense in holding that trade for any period of time. On any of these moves, you're up, you're over, you undercut, then you make the lower low, right? You have a bearish engulfing, it fails. Looks like you're going to finally break out. It rejects. Oh, well, this time we've undercut here, so surely it's going to break. Forms a doji, breaks over. That should give you confirmation. It doesn't. I mean, that to me is just beyond maddening as far as trying to trade that name right now. And all you're really seeing is just sideways action. Look at this. That's all you're saying. That's all you're really saying there. So I don't think there's a lot to do there. The most important thing for us to do tomorrow is watch the 8:30 non-farm payrolls. Watch the AVGO, see how it responds to that conference call. They're the two things I would really focus on. Watch the dollar tomorrow, and we'll go from there. That's it.